And a very beautiful Monday morning to you. Is the first day, first official working day of the week. It's May 22nd, 2017. Thanks for joining us on AM Live. I am Precious Amai.
I am Adiola Adegoke. It feels good to be here after the weekend. The weekend is gone and
yes,
work has started. it's back to
not like it ended, but AM Live is back on screen. And it's again
work. When I say work, I mean like officially everywhere. Like
everywhere
the world
around.
Yes,
okay, most countries in the world work started for most countries in the world today.
Yeah.
Some countries will have. Thursday as their weekend starts on Thursday.
Thursdays, yes.
But just before Deola starts to tell us about how it is 8 days or 9 days to the end of the month and how it's almost half of the year.
Half of the year.
And how she starts to calculate, how many days left in the year. Let's go straight to our big stories now. We know that there has been a lot of corruption allegations leveled against the judiciary in recent times. In fact, some judges have been placed on trial, some have been acquitted, some are still going through the trial process. And there was a time where the president, Muhammadu Buhari, was going to set up a committee to a corruption court, and he was looking for judges, in that court, and then he wanted them to go through the integrity test, and it was said that some judges failed the integrity test. And now they have been, in fact, they've been calls for reform in the Nigerian judiciary. And just yesterday, the CJN, which is the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onoge, came out to say, look, this whole smearing of the image of the judiciary in Nigeria, has gone too far. And that if people have allegations against the judiciary, there are institutions set up where people can, level their allegations or write petitions to, so that such justice or judges rather would be tried by those institutions.
Yes, I think one major issue we seem to be having in Nigeria is the fact that we know when people are doing something wrong, instead of going to the appropriate quarters, we run to the media. That's the in thing. Everyone runs to the media to call out whoever would think is doing something wrong. And in a way, even if at the end of the day there is a trial, that if at the end of the day they get arrested, like the case of the DSS arrest, for those who have been discharged and acquitted, there's no repairing to all of the
image.
Their image that has been damaged. So and I think it's high time for Nigerians to take advantage of all of these agencies that take discipline, all of these agencies that discipline some of these that takes some of these issues into cognizance. Like we know that the judiciary has the Judiciary Council, the National Judiciary Council, which is of course supposed to discipline judges or any member of the judiciary who is alleged to be involved in any wrongdoing. Citizens are expected to use their constitutional rights. Write a petition. If you have anything against any judicial officer, you write a petition, let the case be looked into. And for me, we keep saying we don't trust the system, but if we are not using the system, how then do we know we cannot trust the system? And I think that is an issue Nigerians, and this is an age where people are getting more enlightened by the day. And instead of course, we know that people, with the way at which we disseminate information these days is simply amazing. Like everyone wants to be the first person to break out a news. We want to be the first person who will call out people's name for any wrongdoing. But while we are doing that, we should also look at what if the information I have is wrong? What if things are not? What if the perspective at which I'm seeing things is not the true picture of things? So we should make use of the National Judiciary Council. It's for me, the judiciary is a place where we shouldn't be having court cases in the judiciary. We shouldn't be having judges being arrested, judges under investigation, as it is.
It's supposed to be like the seat of integrity.
Yes, because like it or not, it is going to affect whatever they are doing. If there's a case in court and the judge involved in the case is having an issue with the federal government as it is, and it's a state issue, whether we like it or not, it would in a way compromise their delivery of judgment. Even if it doesn't, there's a way the human minds process things like this. If at the end of the day they rule against the federal government, of course we will say that it's because of the issue they're having with the federal government. And if at the end of the day they do not rule against the federal government. There's another we would
We say, oh well,
maybe
the
they've been intimidated.
yes,
Yeah,
but
that's just it. So we should make use of the judicial council and ensure that whatever, as long as we have facts, we know that these issues are based majorly on facts. If you have your facts, present it and let the law take its course.
True, I agree. You made a very salient point about if you don't use the system, how can you then know that the system works so that you can then trust the system? Mm-hmm. The truth is, we are quick to go on social media or general media, mm-hmm. Traditional media to say, oh, this is what's wrong with this country, or this is what's wrong with the arm of government, or this tier of government, but without necessarily using the institutions that have been put in place to check that particular arm of government. We do what is now termed media trial. We do media trial, and that's what we you smear the image of that arm of government or the mm-hmm. image of that person, and then after that is done, really you can't fix it because you did a media damage. Yeah. And if you have to fix it, you have to go back to the media. But many people really go back to the media to say, oh, I was wrong. Mm-hmm. So really, if there are institutions like the Chief Justice of Nigeria said, there are institutions that we can take advantage of. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to go like there's the NJC, National Judicial Council. We have to take advantage of that. There is the Nigerian Bar Association. There are a lot of bodies within the judiciary that you can take advantage of. You can report anybody you feel is corrupt, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a senior advocate of Nigeria, whether it's a judge or the Chief Justice, even the Chief Justice himself. There are people that you can report when you think that there is anything wrong. So before we smear the image of the judiciary, we're not saying that the judiciary is perfect. In fact, there are a lot of reforms that needs to be carried out in the judiciary. So is every arm of government anyway. Even within the legislature, we know that reforms should be, there should be reforms. Even in the president executive, there should be reforms as well. So while we're calling for these reforms, we shouldn't go bashing a particular arm of government mm-hmm. without substantive claims. And when you're sure that you have substantive claims, go then to the institution that is responsible, for checking, that particular arm of government.
Yes, and the way we expect that Nigerians would make use of this information. And if we're talking about transparency and accountability, it begins with us when we start questioning. When we start questioning these arms of government, we'll realize that they will become accountable to us. I'll look at the issue of the National Assembly. Nigerians did call for a publish of the National Assembly's budget, and here we have it. If we are just gone screaming and pulling down the social media all because we need a budget, it shouldn't have worked. It takes people taking proactive measure instead of just sitting and wishing it happens. No, we should take proactive measure, and we do hope that just as it has been said, Nigeria is turning out to be a better country than we imagine it will be, and in a couple of years we will be able to boast of the kind of governance we have in this country.
Okay, and we should also let's not forget the flip side of it, which is the judges. Justice Onoge also called out to judges in Nigeria to deliver judgments or go about their duties without fear or favor. And that's, it's also a good advice to the judiciary. Do your job without fear or favor. We really shouldn't have issues of integrity in the judiciary. These are people that we should be able to say, the judge who is sitting over this case, we trust that he's able to deliver fair judgment without fear or favor based on the evidence placed before him or her. That's how it should be. But we're going to take a break now, and when we return AM Live, we'll continue to stay with us.
still watching live coming to you from the studios of New Frontiers Television. Of course, it's Monday, and the week has started on a very good note. It's a bright new day of a new, and we've taken the story of the CJN, that's our Walter Onohen, advising Nigerians to make their grievances known against the judiciary. If you have anything against any member of the judiciary, go to the National Judicial Council to submit your petitions, and of course, investigation would follow. And for judicial officers, you should take accounts of whatever it is you're doing. Don't while you're delivering judgments, it should be unbiased, and of course, they should remember the oath of office they signed onto. But away from that, moving on to the presidency now. On May 8, yes, the Monday when the president left the country to the United Kingdom, the presidency was expected to receive a report of the investigation against the SGF, that's Babashir Lawal, and the NIA DG Ayodele Oke, the investigation that was ongoing on within a three-man panel set up, where the acting president, who was the vice president at the time, was heading the department. They were supposed to submit their report to the presidency, but there have been rumors as it is that they couldn't submit the report because of the traveling of the president. But the presidency, now the office of the acting president, has come up to say that as it is, the report is still pending, but the SGF and the NIA DG remain suspended against any information that has been flying around about recalling or whatever it is that people think would happen. But as it is, the report is still pending, but these two people still remain suspended.
I know very well that everybody is quite, in fact, most Nigerians are anxious for that report. When you see across television programs where these issues are being discussed, and then people get a chance to speak, all they want is, look, we just want to hear that report. And there also be controversies about the fact that you have someone like Babach, you have now the vice president, who was the chairman of that probing committee, is now the acting president. He cannot report to himself. So it does put some sort of loophole within the whole system. Not a loophole, but it does put I'm looking for the right word. Like you can't report to yourself. So there has to be some sort of break in between, because the presidency the president has to be around. It is the president you have to report to. That suspension was made by him. So of course they have to stay suspended until he probably returns. The vice president cannot submit a report to himself. He knows the content of the report quite all right, because he was the one who headed that committee. But he cannot say, oh, this is based on my report, this is what I am going to do. The presidency has to look at, the president has to look at the report and then go through it and then make a recommendation based on the report. So that's something that has to be done by the president, and except the president then gives an order and say, look, go ahead. So they have it's complicated as it is now, and until the president's return, they really probably would have to stay. They have to remain suspended, because the findings of the report have not been made known. And it's based on the findings of the report that recommendations will be made. So of course I don't understand the idea of staying suspended. And
also considering that the presidency has been silent over the issue since the suspension took place, there has been no statement as it is from the presidency. We do hope that Nigerians will be patient, because that was what the acting president actually did ask for, the Nigerians will be patient. He understands that our people, because it's for me, I think it's because of the people involved. Everyone wants to know what exactly is going to be done about these cases. The secretary to the federal government was accused of contract fraud and bribery under the allocation of the PINE, the Northern Empowerment Program, which he was involved in. And of course, there was the case of the 13 billion naira found in the Ikoyi apartments, which is said to be to belong to the NIA, and which is said to belong to the NIA as it is. Well, the panel is still investigating. We still do not understand the whole process of especially the Ikoyi money. People have been calling. We really need to know what NIA is doing with such amount of money and who authorized the operation or whatever it is that happened concerning that money. And we do hope that well, as soon as the president gets back to the country, we will have full information, and if the president wants action to be taken, we would get the information as soon as possible.
True. And then you know that we also know that the legislature, which is National Assembly, have, especially the Senate, they have said that look, they don't care about the not necessarily they don't care, but they are not going to go with the recommendations of the committee set up by the presidency, but because they had already started their own investigation and probe into the issues of the presidential initiative on the Northeast, and that they are not, so since they have already started and they already started their investigation, they have summoned the SGF. I think the third time he still refused to show up, but they are not going to go with the recommendations of the presidency. They are also going to keep carrying on the investigation, make their own recommendations. So we're going to hear recommendations from both sides. We already know that, okay, the Senate is already obviously acted by the fact that Babachir refused to show up.
Yes.
He's been suspended, so maybe that's one of the reasons he also refused to show up. Even when he was in office, he didn't show up for reasons best known to him. So there are two different committees working on this issue. We see their recommendation. I know that people seem to see that of the presidency as, you know, oh, this is the one that we're waiting for. Both arms of government have their probe going on. We're going to find out, we're going to get the findings anytime soon. Of course, we're going to bring it to you as you know, the reports come out. We also pass it across to you. So like the acting president said, let's all be patient. It's a very sensitive and I understand that of the SGF, because it's a very sensitive office until he's, you know, until there is a decision being made on that office. You don't know if you have you don't know who the SGF is. Like that opposition has been left open. There is no SGF at the moment. So the earlier the recommendations are made, the better for the country. We're going to take another break now, and just before we go on the break, just to let you know that the president of the United States, President Donald Trump, was in Saudi Arabia over the weekend, and then he's jetting off to Jerusalem today to continue talks or to initiate further talks with Israel and the Palestinian Authority. We'll see how that goes, and I'm going to bring you a report. We know how it's been between those two countries, you know, Israel and Palestine, and Trump is looking to see if he can wade in to the issues being raised by both sides, and as he begins that the talks between the two countries. We're going to bring you a report on that. But we'll go on a break now, and when we return, AM Live will continue. Do stay with us.
thank you for staying with us on AM Live, and we've given you some of the big stories that happened over the weekend, where the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Babashi Lawal, has said that Nigerians should take advantage of the National Judicial Council to ensure that they petition judicial officers who have done
the SGN is watching now. Justice Walter Onogen.
Justice Walter Onogen.
I know you're mixing up.
I was mixing the two stories. Then again, the case suspension of the SGF Babashi Lawal and the DG of NIA, that's Ayo Oke, who the investigation is going on concerning the issues surrounding them, and the presidency has come up to say that we should be patient. Nigerians should be patient, as the report is ready but has not yet been submitted to the president. And until the president gets it, the executive will take a decision on all of those issues. But away from all of that,
yes, most of the diseases, or whether we call them diseases or whether we call them ailments that we used to know as children, and most of those diseases were associated with the elderlies. These days, even younger persons are being affected by those ailments. Now, we know young people who have diabetes, we know young people who have cancer, we know young people who have who are suffering from issues around hypertension or even stroke. So we can no longer say that it is those diseases come with old age anymore. In fact, anybody can have them, and that's why we all need to be careful. Our correspondent Temitope Oladipo did go out, to do a report on hypertension as it affects every one of us.
Hypertension, blood pressure, is the amount of force exerted against the walls of the arteries as blood flows through them. If a person has high blood pressure, it means that the walls of the arteries are receiving too much pressure repeatedly. The pressure needs to be chronically elevated for a diagnosis of hypertension to be confirmed. In medicine, chronic means for a sustained period and persistent. If left untreated or uncontrolled, high blood pressure can cause many health problems. These conditions include heart failure, vision loss, stroke, and kidney disease. Mrs. Olatokun Oluwatosin, an occupational nurse, explained further on this.
High blood pressure can simply be defined as a persistent increase or rise in the level of blood in the body. That's just a simple definition. And blood pressure, it has a range in the body. It ranges between 90-60 milligram of mercury to 140-90 milligram of mercury. But there are some schools of thought that makes it vary. But generally, the normal range is between 90-60 to 140-90.
A retired reproductive medicine consultant at the University College Hospital UCH Ibadan, Professor Modupe Onodeko, says 7 out of 10 Nigerians have hypertension, and that 50% of these 7 are unaware that they are hypertensive. Professor Onodeko disclosed this on Wednesday in an interview with newsmen in Ibadan in commemoration of this year's World Hypertension Day. The commemoration is aimed at increasing public awareness about the condition, and this year's theme is Know Your Blood Pressure. Our crew went out to know how Nigerians do often check their blood pressure.
Of my health, so I do check it at least once in a week, so to ascertain. And because of the type of job I'm doing, I'm a marketer, and because of the stress and the target that is given unto me, this is always pose a kind of a stress on my health. So, and it lead me to check it at least once in a week, especially on Saturday. To that will, help me to prepare for the week ahead. My advice generally to everybody is to make it a kind of a perpetual thing. If we look at the situation in the country, the recession is also the result is depression. And if one cannot take it easy, it will lead to high blood pressure.
for medical checkup and check all my body system, especially my BP. BP is the same thing as the blood pressure. I check it from time to time. I have the machine at home, just a little machine for me to check, and there is an instruction on it that I follow from time to time. My advice to our people is checking the blood pressure should not be a crime and should not be a thing that will make them to get too much afraid of doing it. It's a thing you should do from time to time so as for you to know how to take care of yourself and to manage yourself well.
Actually, for me, I check it once in 2 months because my doctor where I work, she advised me to be checking it once in 2 months. That's why I check it once in 2 months, and I'm okay with it. Ma? Well, I want to advise people, because when we look at what is going on around the world now, because of the money and so many things, people are sick and there is so many things happen to people. So I will advise people to be checking it at least once these days.
I go to the hospital before I check my blood pressure. You say what? My advice to people is that they should try to be checking their blood pressure at least 3 months, so that they will know if there's something wrong with their health-wise. Yeah.
Hypertension Day, it is advised that people should do regular blood pressure check and adhere to doctor's instruction on healthy diet and physical exercise. Temitope Oladipo reporting for New Frontiers Television.
All right, thanks for staying with us. You're still watching AM Live here on New Frontiers Television. We'll move on now to our morning brief segment, which is a look at the headlines on the papers. I have the Punch newspaper with me here, and the major headline reads, PDP factions trade insults as Supreme Court hears appeal today. Sheriff's group describes McAfee's faction as rebels. Those following Sheriff are being deceived, misled. It looks like there's no end in sight to the faction within the PDP. And a member of the PDP recently said that the party is dead. You know, we hope not. We hope that party leaders can wait in and resolve this issue. Still on the PDP, PDP shuns probe into killing of 50 Rivers residents, and that's coming from the NHRC, which is Nigerian National Human Rights Commission. And you find reports of that on page 7. Reports of the issues around PDP you generally find on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. Governor Ingilari's release. Sagay demands prosecution of prison officials. And find more details on page 10. Still on the federal government. Federal government states, local governments shared 1.41 trillion naira in first quarter, and that's according to reports. You find more details rather of that on page 30. 100 billion naira needed to reconstruct Apapa Road. That's coming from the Minister of State, the Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola. UTME, jump to catch exam cheats with CCTV. More details on page 10. Lecturer impregnated me, rejects pregnancy, says students. You find more details on pages 4 and 5. Write petitions against corrupt judges, CGN tells Nigerians. More details on page 44. NCAA, which is Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, stops Ethiopian Airlines deportation tax, says it's illegal. That's on page 30 of the Punch newspaper. 59 billion naira rail project. Abaribe tackles Amechi over alleged Southeast exclusion. You find more details on page 10. Politicians hiring marabouts pastors to pray for Buhari's death. You find more details on page 15. There is an insert here of Chelsea's players celebrating winning the English Premier League after their match against Sunderland at Stamford Bridge in London. Congratulations to Chelsea and all Chelsea fans. All right, moving away from that report. 8 signs you are too dependent on technology. Someone I know is listening right now, and she knows she's dependent on her phone. So 8 signs you're too dependent on technology. You find more details on that on page 3. And that's all for the front page. And just to look at the headline on the back page, YEROGP, which is the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, is bound to fail. That's by Henry Boyo, and it's on the back page. This is a continuation, it's part 2 of that article. It's on the back page. If you want to know why it is bound to fail, if it's bound to fail, it's on the back page of the Punch newspaper. And that's all for the Punch newspaper.
Moving on to the Guardian newspaper. Manufacturers opt for cluster plants to tackle energy costs. Details of the story continues on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Judiciary under threat, says Justice Onohe. Buratai alerts an imperative of a fortified democracy in Nigeria. This one is inside the pages of the Guardian newspaper. Ile wins Etisalat Prize for Literature. Iromwanya is runner-up. That's 2 Nigerians. A Nigerian won, and the Nigerian is also second runner-up of the first runner-up of the prize. Why not is uncomfortable with restructuring. Agenda is to halt our region, Yakasai insists. It's the way out, says Onodekpe and Akonde. Details of the story also continues on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. That's the much from the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
All right, now looking at the Metro column of the Punch newspaper. It says here, kidnappers murder man after collecting ransom. This is also another very sad story. Man kills a 7-year-old son for stealing. I don't know how you get to that point where, the boy steals, which is a bad thing, but you kill him. Maybe he did beat him excessively, and then the boy died. But we're having a lot of reports on, someone killing someone, somebody killing their child, somebody killing their mother. I mean, you just realize that society is going south, really.
Yeah.
Generator fumes kill 3 in Edo, and that's all for the Metro column.
Okay, moving on to the Metro section of the Guardian newspaper. Dazzling Eyo, Era's final week of Lagos at 50 celebration. 2 feared dead, several injured at festival. Generating set film kills 3 in Edo State. Inspector Doctor arranged for issuing police reports to injured robbers. RRS, that is the Rapid Response Squad of Lagos State, rescues boys fleeing from Abuja and reunites them with parents. Courts to determine fate of Anambra-based manufacturer today. Police arrest alleged abductors, killers of businessman. And that's the march on the Metro section of the Guardian newspaper.
All right, now moving on to the editorial column and the editorial and viewpoint column of the Punch newspaper. Stiffer sanctions needed to cleanse banks, and that's for the editorial. For the letters column, Ebola containment, the potential of Sentinel community surveillance. That's for letters, and then for viewpoint column, reflections on 2017 federal budget approval. That's by Eze Onyekbere, and that's all for the viewpoint column.
On the editorial column of the Guardian newspaper, the alarm over unemployment, and on later we have the ban on vehicle inspection service on Lagos roads. Moving to opinion, the spirit of merit, Nigeria's greatness beyond rhetoric, building the future by respecting the past. Then Ben Obumselu, tributes to a great scholar. That's much from opinion, later, and editorial columns of the Guardian newspaper.
All right, now looking at Financial Punch this Monday morning, for property, project finance, a major hindrance to housing, and that's by Adejano. The federal government requires $1.21 billion to revive Ajaokuta Steel Complex. Still on Financial Punch, it says Medview declares 29.25 million naira dividend, coveting post profit. Still on Financial Punch, MPC meets today, which is the Monetary Policy Committee, meets today. CBN may hold key rates. NCAA declares Ethiopian Airlines deportation tax illegal, and we saw that on the front page. Nigeria to earn $296,143 dividend from Islamic Bank. 100 billion naira needed to reconstruct Apapa Road, and that's coming from Fashola. That was also on the front page, still within the papers. Naira increases gain, closes at 380 Naira to the dollar. United Nations Industrial Development Organization to support Nigeria's Special Economic Zones, MSMEs. Moody's affirms Sterling Bank's ratings. Pension operator advises labor unions on CBS. And that's all for the Financial Punch.
On Guardian Money, banks' total assets declined to 32 trillion naira. CBN makes 3.3 billion from banks' borrowing. Amosun, CITN, app on voluntary tax compliance. Berger Prints plans sub-Saharan African expansion. Then S&P, that's Standard & Poor's, assigns BB ratings stable outlook on UBA. And C&I Leasing PLC targets $100 million fresh capital. And moving on to insurance, operators attribute declining profits to high income tax. WAPIC woos investors with Q1 results as PBT growth hits 135%. And the African Alliance gets new MD CEO. That's the much on Guardian Money.
All right, now looking at the homes and property column of the Punch newspaper. Embrace facility management, experts tell government. Still on homes and property, Lagos plans upgrade of Bariga Ifelodun LCDAs. And then finally, experts call for concession of public infrastructure. And that's all for homes and property.
On Guardian Property, West Africa's roof, a skill, a market wins UN Habitat prestigious award. Commercial property market bubbles as new buildings rise. Estate surveyors hold talks with AGF, demand reform in asset valuation. New body takes over architects. I'll take that again. New body takes over architects' lead roles in project management. Reps probe Abuja agency over non-issuance of land titles. Surveyors demand reforms in valuation of ministries, departments, and agencies. And that's the much from Guardian Property.
All right, now looking at the sports column of the Punch newspaper. Violence mars Sunshine Lobby clash. That's for the MPFL. Emery rules GSL Open. Zverev wins Rome Masters. Lalong pledges support for Plateau United. Ronaldo leads Real to 33rd La Liga title. Still on sport. Why Arsenal fade? And that's coming from Wenger. Terry quits as Chelsea lift title. John Terry has finally resigned, from football. He's been there himself, and Frank Lampard. Lampard has been there, at Chelsea for a very long period of time. Lampard has officially resigned. He is also now leaving the football terrain, saying, "Look, I have to go rest." He was celebrated. Really, he should be celebrated. Moving away from that, Allegri wants Italian champions to complete historic treble. Mastercare win Delta Principals Cup. Musa to open a 500 million complex in Kano. And just look at the result from the EPL and the MPFL yesterday. Liverpool 3, Middlesbrough 0, Watford 0, Man City 5, Chelsea 5, Sunderland 1. Southampton against Stoke ended 1-0 in favor of Stoke. Arsenal beat Everton 3-1, but Liverpool still went up the table. Hull versus Spurs. Spurs won 7-1 against Hull. Leicester had a draw with Bournemouth 1-1. Burnley won West Ham to Man U to Crystal Palace 0. Swansea 2, West Brom 1. And looking at the La Liga, Barcelona 3, Eibar 2, Malaga 0, Real Madrid 2. And then looking at the Nigerian Premier League, 3SC, which is the Shooting Stars Sports Club 0, Ifeanyi 3, Katsina 1, Plateau United 1, ABS 2, El Kanemi 1, Rangers versus Gombe in the favor of Rangers 2-1. MFM 0, Aqua Ibom 0. Kind of shocked. MFM is usually a very good team. Remo 0, Enyiba 1. Pillars 1, Tornado 0, Sunshine 0, Lobby 1. And finally, Wiki against Abia came ended 3-0 in favor of Wiki. And that's all for the results yesterday across the weekend.
On to Guardian Sports. Violence mars Lobby Stars away victory in Akure. FC Ifeanyi Eyimba also recorded road win. Ronaldo leads Real Madrid to finally recapture La Liga title. Mystery for Arsenal as Man City, Liverpool still final Champions League slots. That's the much from Guardian Sports for today. Yes,
sad for Arsenal.
So sad.
They just didn't make. I mean, we knew Arsenal to always be number 4 on the table. It had become 18, but this year they didn't even get to number 4 on the table. And Man City, so it's Chelsea, Tottenham, Man City, and Liverpool, you know, on that table, 1 to 4. Sorry, Arsenal. Hopefully, you do better in the next league.
season.
But Arsenal does need some sort of overhaul and reform within that club, just so that their fans can smile for once. But they're still one of the biggest teams in Europe. You can't take that away from them. They still have great fans across the world. That's the much we're taking from the papers this morning. We're going to take a break now to allow for the morning news. And after the morning news, AM Live will continue. Do stay with us.
Good morning. This is News Updates coming to you from the studios of New Frontiers Television. My name is Adiola Adegoke. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onohen, has asked Nigerians to petition any judicial officer involved in corruption or any form of unprofessional conduct in any part of the country to the National Judicial Council. The CJN, who by virtue of its position heads the NJC, that's the National Judicial Council, which has disciplinary powers over judges, also want politicians to desist from using the mass media to smear the image of the nation's judiciary and that of hardworking and honest judicial officers. Justice Onohen stressed that Nigerians should learn to take advantage of institutions that have been established to handle allegations of corruption and unprofessional conduct by judicial officers, including cases of judicial fraud, which is said the senator cited as the reason for the loss of a mandate in the law court. In Rivers State, the Rivers State governor, Nyesom Wike, has recalled how the All Progressive Congress Party attempted to frustrate his inauguration as the governor of the state in 2015. Wike, who expressed gratitude to God for his second year in office, explained that the opposition party in the state had gone to various courts across the country to shop for injunctions to stop his being sworn in as governor. He declared that God delivered the administration from those machinations of the APC. The governor, who spoke during the dedication and Thanksgiving service to mark the second-year anniversary of his administration, said, that's part of the statement made by the immediate past governor, Mr. Rotimi Amaechi, on May 27, 2015, that he would not get funds to pay salaries or do projects. His administration had been a success executing projects across the states and paying salaries regularly. Following threats by Boko Haram to attack Abuja, security agencies in the Federal Capital Territory have declared their readiness to combat all forms of threats to lives and property by intensifying intelligence efforts, surveillance, and raiding black spots within and around the city. The decision was taken at an emergency meeting of the Federal Capital Territory Security Committee to review the current security situation in the nation's capital. The meeting, which was chaired by the FCT Minister Malam Mohammed Musa Bello, was attended by the FCT Permanent Secretary Dr. Babatokpe Ajakaye, the Police Commissioner, FCT Director of DSS, Nigerian Army, Nigerian Air Force, Nigerian Navy, Customs, Immigration, NSCDC, Prisons, FRSC, NDLEA, among others. The security chiefs noted with concern the recent threat by the Boko Haram sect to attack the Federal Capital Territory, but said the threat was not being taken lightly, as everything will be done to prevent attack on any part of the territory. The National President of National Union of Teachers, Comrade Michael Olukoya, has expressed the union's gratitude to Ogun State Governor Senator Ibikole Amosun over the pardon granted to 3 members of the union in the state. Amosun had granted pardon to former chairman of the NUT in the state, Dare Ilekoya, and 2 others, Eniola Atiku and Nola Balogun, who were dismissed for gross misconduct. Olukoya, who stated this during a press conference in Abeokuta over the pardon, however, begged the state government to consider payment of deductions running into 7 or 8 months. The NUT boss, however, pledged that the union in the state, under the new leadership of Comrade Titi Adebanjo, would not engage in any activity capable of pitching it against the state government, adding that the body would rather engage in what it termed scientific unionism than involving itself in politics. We'll take a break now and we'll be back with more news. Don't go away. staying with us on news updates. Moving to agriculture sector, where the Ebonyi State Governor, David Umahi, has paid 110 million naira as counterpart fund for the Fadama 3 additional financing projects of the federal government. A statement said that the 110 million naira paid by Umahi was for 2015, 2016, and 2017. According to the statement, the information was contained in the midterm report presented by the Ebonyi State Fadama office to the federal government midterm review team who visited Ebonyi last weekend. The report quoted Umahi as stating that Ebonyi is ready and willing to play a leading role in rice and cassava value chain in the country. According to the report, during the 2016 rain-fed farming season, 1,815 hectares of rice farms were cultivated using recommended production technology as provided by advisory service consultants, and this resulted into total output of 9,075 metric tons by farmers. The Executive Director and Chief Financial Officer, Oando PLC, Mr. Femi Adeyemi, has said the federal government spent about 9 trillion naira on oil subsidy in the last 10 years. He advised the federal government to drop oil subsidy in order to enhance infrastructural development and economic growth. He said this just as the Government College Ibadan Old Boys Association said it had just set up the Government College Ibadan Educational Foundation to address infrastructural deficits in their alma mater. He told the gathering, which included the chairman, that the foundation would raise 250 million naira to build boarding facilities, house masters' quarters, and embark on other projects in the school. Special advisor to the President on social investments, Mrs. Miriam Owais, has said that the World Bank has approved $500 million loan for the federal government's social investment programs. Owais, who disclosed this during an interactive session with journalists in Abuja, also expressed frustration at efforts by politicians to dictate what should happen with the program, but vowed that the office would resist such efforts. She said the World Bank was propelled to assist with the loan because of the transparency and accountability that trailed the program since its takeoff. Mrs. Owais, who noted that only 80 billion naira of the 500 billion naira earmarked for the program have been released, put the number of people below the poverty line in the country at 53 million. She said the greatest achievement of the program thus far was its ability to come up with a national social register which successive governments could rely on to address poverty in the country. On that note, we come to the end of news updates coming to you from the studios of New Frontiers Television. My name is Adiola Adegoke. AM Live continues shortly. Don't go away.